Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Real Talk. Yet another edition that we're shooting from outside. It's perfect weather with a swimming pool in the background. The pool would have really looked nice on a sunny day, but no, God has decided to bless us with the rain. Thank you for blessing us with your presence. My name is Jackie Lumbasi, and our guest is Fabrice. Yes, part two of a conversation that we started last week. We are coming to you from Mythos Boutique Hotel in Kiyovu. You should visit them, try out their lunch that is served on a daily basis during the week inside Atmosphere Restaurant. Let's get the conversation started. Thank you so much for joining us. Use the hashtag The Real Talk. Both Fabrice and I will be online to respond to you. Fabrice is a musician. He's a minister of the word. He's done so many things, studied law. What do you call someone who studied law but they didn't necessarily practice it? Because I know there's a term for that person.
Uh,
I think it's a lawyer.
Lawyer, yeah,
Because an
usually.
advocate is one who's going to court.
Mm, exactly.
Okay. Good to see you again, Fabrice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, pleasure.
It's a
Pleasure.
pleasure to be here
Thank you.
again for the second
Again.
time.
Thanks for honoring our invitation for the second time. So last week we got to know you,
Mm,
touched a little bit on your marriage, you, your wife Maya, and the young one. And we got to know Fabrice the musician. Now today I want us to hear Fabrice's opinion on a topic that has been discussed in the last few weeks largely, the closure of churches. This is not happening for the first time. In 2018, the government of Rwanda, through RGB, closed more than 1,000 churches that they said were not adhering to the requirements in place. Churches that didn't have soundproofing, churches that didn't have a proper structure or shelter. And there was a requirement put in place. If anyone was to shepherd a flock of sheep, then they had to study theology. Then that phase goes, we continue normally. Then in 2024, we hear again more than 1,000 churches have been closed. So, what impact was achieved from the first closure? Why would we have churches close again? And the government has come out and explained itself. Fabrice, from where you stand as a gospel artist, as a Christian, as someone who studied theology, what was the first thought that came to mind when that news was broken?
mm. First of all, this is a very difficult conversation, but a conversation that is needed. And we need to have this conversation. And I was asking myself, or maybe the person who is watching us is asking themselves if I'm even qualified to speak about this.
Yes.
Because obviously there are many bishops around here, many apostles. But I think I could
Can I
bring
can
in,
I respond
yeah.
to the person watching? The invitation came from me, and I could have picked anyone. I could have picked
Yeah.
an archbishop. I could have picked some apostle or whoever.
Mm,
But I picked someone that I believe will be objective,
yeah.
a neutral party.
And exactly, I wanted just to say,
Yes.
from where I stand, I've been in church since 1999. So I've been working with pastors. I've been in church as someone who leads the worship ministry. I am a church guy.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're a church guy.
Then, as I said last time, in 2017, 2016, 17, I decided to go and do theology. Not to become a pastor, but because I felt it was needed.
Mm,
Second, I'm a gospel artist,
yes.
and I'm Burundian, so I
Mm,
I definitely have no any interest in bashing this or supporting the other.
I hear
So I
you.
think um, the discussion we're about to have is from an objective side.
I believe so.
So when I heard that churches were being closed, I had so many feelings. But because it's not the first time and it's not something that has only happened in Rwanda, but I also saw it in some places. But I'm going to speak from what I saw here in Rwanda. I think some Christians took it in a way saying, this is persecution.
Yes.
And that is a big word in terms of religion and state. So I want, first of all, to debunk this thinking.
Mm.
I don't think what I saw here can be equated to
To persecution.
persecution, because
Okay.
persecution, it's when the state is mistreating believers or churches because of what they believe in, and most of the time this will result in imprisonment, in closing down completely the whole movement of faith.
Yeah.
They will not
Not
choose
not
three,
specific. They won't choose
they will not
three.
choose four,
I hear
but they will
you.
say all Christians go away.
Yeah.
So this is persecution.
Mm.
But here, what I'm seeing, Jackie, it's probably what people are not seeing. It's that the government is demanding accountability. Government is demanding relevance for the church. And why am I saying this? When you look at the list of things that people need to fulfill in order to for their churches to be open, I think there are 10 out. I think I've seen 10 of them. And I think this list was discussed 5 years ago with the church
Yeah.
leaders.
Yeah.
It's not something that came abruptly.
The churches were made aware
Yes.
5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago, there was a
Mm.
discussion, and they agreed, these are the things that you need to work on. Pastor or the one
Should
who's
have a
leading the
certificate.
church needs to have a theological background. You
Mm-hmm.
need pavement. You need washrooms. You need all soundproof, and there are 10 now. You can consult the list. First of all, some of them did not comply to this, and it's been 5 years. So as Christians, we need to look at this um, from an angle. We ask ourselves: are we really doing what we are supposed to do? Because when Jesus was confronted with the question, they asked him, uh, most of the people know the answer when he says, "Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs
Or
to God."
belongs to God, yeah.
What he's trying to say, he is inviting people to be responsible towards the demands of the state. Jesus himself is not inciting rebellion, because this question that was asked, he could have said, "You know what, I don't care." But he said, "Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God." It means you have,
Recognizing that the two will exist
yes, the two will
together.
exist, and you have to give to God what belongs to him. Means you have to be devoted to God. You have to do you know, all you need to be a good Christian, but also to be a good citizen. No wonder when he is being tried, Pilate couldn't find any fault in him. That's why he washes his hands and says,
I
I
surrender.
surrender. This guy can only be judged according to your own religious beliefs. But
Yeah.
today, we are having church leaders who are being tried because they've demanded 10 million for prayer. Okay? Jesus never did that. None of the disciples of Jesus Christ asked for money to perform a miracle. Okay. So we need to understand that we are probably misrepresenting Christianity. Therefore, the government is taking some measures. And here I'm talking about accountability.
Mm.
When you look at a building, okay, let me give a personal story. I lived in Chinyenya when I arrived in Rwanda, and close to my house was a church.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and this church, they would pray from Monday up to Monday, from 8 a.m. to up to 8 in the
8
evening.
8 p.m. Sometimes 8 a.m.
And I would
Because
ask
others would
myself, I would be like,
transnight.
I used to discuss with my wife, I'm like, are we bad Christians? Why am I feeling irritated by this noise close to my house? Why do I feel irritated? Why am I not happy that they are spreading the gospel? You understand? As a Christian, I was not happy to live in that environment
Because it was
because
noisy.
it was noisy.
Mm.
Number two, I would think about the people who are in that church. Usually they were very, you know, women from those other neighborhoods who are not even financially stable. And I'd think, this pastor, at the end of the month, he's getting something.
He's getting something, no doubt.
But these people who are in this church from Monday to Monday, making noise for the whole neighborhood, how is he going to even reach out to the people in the neighborhood? Because the people were coming to pray were from far,
Yeah.
you know. So, as I'm saying, we need to think as a church and be wise and know this is inconveniencing someone because your freedom, we have freedom of
Oh,
religion in
yes.
Rwanda. But
We have
my
freedom of
freedom,
worship.
they say my freedom ends where someone else's freedom starts.
Yeah.
You understand?
Mm.
So I remember asking this pastor, I called him and I said, you know, first of all, I want you to know that I'm a Christian. I'm not going to say this from,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
hate you. I'm not one
I
of
hate
you.
you, I'm not one of you.
Mm-mm.
But I was like, hey, you're making noise
Yeah.
in this neighborhood. And besides, can you please consider organizing the times of prayer in a way that you can allow these women to at least go
To
and
at
sell
least
some vegetables,
exactly
at least do
go take
something
care
for
of
their
their
lives, take care of their
families.
families, organize them in a way that you will not cause even marital conflicts in families, you know, because the wife is gone for, I don't know, 18 hours,
Yeah.
um, a whole week, and you're like, okay, so you have a family, you have responsibilities.
Mm.
So accountability is something very important. Accountability goes in many areas. Number
Mm.
one, let's talk about finances of churches. And I'm sure most of them were not closed because of finances, because of this. But I'm just saying accountability
Yeah.
is what the government usually demands.
Yeah.
Most of our churches, they are born out of conflict. It's a pastor who did not agree with another one, then therefore I'm not happy, then I go and start my own. And
Mm.
obviously I will repeat the same mistake and someone
And
else
somebody else will leave
will leave
you
me
to
and
start their
go and
own.
do their own, and they are not going to reach out to the lost. It's
Mm-mm.
usually we recycle people from one church to the other. I would be happy to see a church that is multiplying because they are going to preach to
To new people.
to new
They're
people, they are going to
recruiting new
preach, they are going to,
believers.
but talking about accountability, I was saying in terms of financial management, most of our churches will mishandle funds or will not have proper procedures. I come from a church that is, I would say, I trust my church when it comes to financial management. I worked for the church.
Every Christian will say that about their church.
Probably
Fabrice,
yes,
yes.
but what I'm saying, it's a testimony. It's a personal testimony because
Mm.
most of us Christians, we are all the same. We love our churches, but we also have our reservations sometimes when it comes to certain things. But I'm giving a testimony of a place I've seen where the pastor is not allowed to go and touch funds without another office approving or saying something about it.
You mean the money does not belong to the pastor?
No, it does not.
Okay.
It does not and
Because
does
when
not
we see
believe.
these pastors driving Porsche V8 and Range Rovers, living by the lake, we assume this is a senior pastor of this church and they have a blank check. They can access the money anytime. But you're saying
Yes.
this particular church that you belong to has those checks in place.
Yes. We
Okay.
have those checks in place, and the church is audited internally and from the outside. They bring in an audit firm to come and audit the books.
Wow.
And for that reason, I am confident tithing or giving my money, knowing that it's going to do exactly what it's supposed to do. So, why am I bringing in this? I'm talking about accountability. Most of our churches don't have that accountability system. I'm just showing you that such things usually what happens when people see that, they go and start their own. And we have that's why we have a lot of churches because of some of this mismanagement and conflict in the local church that will birth other unhealthy churches.
Churches. So the and it's good to use the term unhealthy because the churches are not being started because somebody wants to minister to the people. They want to preach the word. This church is being started because I want to get back at the other person.
Yes, the other person did this
Yes,
and that.
the other person did this. And then the other person, we were making 1 million in that church and he was
Mm-hmm.
taking the 1 million
Mm-hmm.
francs. Now let me at least get
Mm-hmm.
500
Mm-hmm.
as he gets 500.
So usually, there's a pastor, there's his wife, then there's a number of other pastors around him.
And elders.
Yeah. And sometimes those people are doing more work than him. And because they are frustrated that the money is going to one person, that's how they go and start other churches. So what I'm just saying here is that I'm talking about the number of churches that we have, which is somehow where I come from in Burundi, you would see a street and you have like maybe 6 or 7 churches on one street with a distance of 100 meters
I
or
don't want to
to
tell you the
200.
story of Kenya because it's the same thing.
Yeah. So and I know even there they are trying to regulate and find a way to bring in order. So
Have they ever closed the churches?
there was a law about that,
Oh.
and I know there are some churches that where the government had to intervene, and this one is fighting with the other, uh, and maybe this one is closed. There are churches which were working in other churches. For example,
Mm-hmm.
this church meets in the morning, then in the afternoon there's another one that comes in, or there's
So they
things like
rent
that.
they rent
They've
the
been also
venue.
trying to regulate that. um, I don't want to lose the chain of my thoughts. I was saying accountability is a very big thing that we need to see from where we stand as Christians. Number two is relevance. When I talk about relevance, I'm looking at the community where we are as a church. Are we relevant in that place? Are we solving any problem in that community? Because when you look at Jesus and his ministry, I see a relevant guy always. Jesus could tell when people are hungry and stop preaching. That's how he fed the 5,000. Yes,
He could tell they were hungry.
he could tell they
Let's
were
take a
hungry.
break, eat, then we continue with
Yeah,
this.
relevance. It means you have to open your eyes and see the problems in the society and say, in this place, yes, I'm coming to preach, but we have many women who don't have a job. What can we do to this society? How can we change this? How can we make an impact in their lives? And maybe as you teach, you also teach how to work. You also teach how to come out of poverty. You don't demand from those who don't have, and you don't extort from from
From
from,
the ones
from
who
the
have.
poor. Rather, you help them to rise from poverty to a certain level. And I know that churches, they partner with the government when they start. There are things they say they will do. If you go to RGB and you look at the documents, every church says, I will build schools, I will do ABCD,
Yes,
I will
I'll drill
I will
water,
drill water,
balls.
things like that. Most of our churches don't do that at the end of the day. They will just start the prayer room, then keep building, keep going, growing one from 100 seats to 200 seats, 300 seats. But we don't open usually our eyes to see what is happening in the society. That being said, the church is a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived in healthy churches. I've seen the impact a church can have on society. It would be sad for most churches to be closed down. I would rather I would rather see our church leaders sitting together and saying, you know what, we need to change something.
Mm.
We need to come back to to the roots of what a church is supposed to be. And then, therefore, comply. These 10 things are not even big things,
No, the one, yeah.
because when you say we talk about pavement and we talk about
Soundproofing.
soundproofing and we talk about, first
About
of all,
water, running water, washrooms, those are things
let
that
me
can.
say that I love soundproof. So
Yes.
please, pastors, soundproof the churches, because I've led worship in places where you have tiles on the all over the ground, and sound is bouncing back from
Of-
tiles to. Um,
yeah.
I hope among the regulations,
Yes.
I hope no one tells the church to put tiles.
No, no, no.
I really
You'd rather they do the soundproofing.
no, the
And
soundproofing. What people don't know, tiles are they contribute to 80% of the noise in churches. Every time the sound bounces on a very hard uh,
ground
ground, it goes from the ground, then it goes up to
to the
the
roof.
ceiling, and
And then you have this,
then
the
we have all
echo.
this
Oh,
echo,
ah.
and the church is making noise. So anyway, that's another story of another day. But there are pavements which are suitable for a church, and
Mhm.
those which are not. But I was saying we invest a lot in our place of worship without investing in the community where we are supposed to do ministry.
I want to ask, when you say what you expect of pastors is that we go back to the roots, yeah?
Mm.
I want you to share with me your thoughts on how far religion has gone from the roots. So we are talking about Christianity a lot because, yeah, Christians
Mm.
are the most affected when it came to this. It's the most
Mm.
affected, but also they're the people that are opening churches all over the place. How far have we gone? Is it possible to go back to the basics?
Thank you for bringing it, bringing that subject. But before I respond to this, Jackie, I would like to conclude on the two things I talked about: relevance and accountability. Um, Before we complain, there is one thing I've seen we need to ask ourselves: has this been done to other institutions? Because I've seen restaurants being closed down because they don't meet um,
Or
the
they exceeded the
standards.
noise,
Uh,
sound levels,
yeah,
or they
sound.
didn't meet the standards, as you've said, yeah?
Yeah, or even cleanliness.
Even
You
hospitals
know,
have been closed.
yeah, I know a number
Yeah,
of those
yeah.
which were closed down. And when we are talking about making better, growing from where we are, we also need to see it's also happening around us.
Mhm.
Very recently, I heard that the business which are around the stadium, they need to upgrade to the standards of the of the stadium, and that is a normal thing to see in society. When I say relevance, you have to be relevant to where you are. You have to know, oh, Rwanda is developing fast, therefore we also need to develop as churches. And that is the one thing that we are missing, to put ourselves in the context of where we are and know exactly how to build the church. Because let's be honest, if you are going to start a church in the US, which
Mm.
I see some of our pastors do actually, they will not build a tent or something, no, they will,
It will not be a temporary
no,
structure.
they will find something.
Mm.
I used to be um, very hurt by certain missionaries that I know who come from very wealthy countries where they have beautiful buildings. Then they come to start churches in Africa and build tents.
Would
I
they do
used,
that?
yeah, I know cases. I used to
Okay.
Google and see, let me see the mother church. And then look at the building. I look at the instruments and I'm like, but you're coming to Africa to build a church. Why don't you do the same? And I think really we need to demand from the people who serve us, they need to do it well, you know, because I mean, see how countries build embassies. they build an embassy which is at the, you know,
level.
I mean, you go to Kachiru, you will tell me.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
anyway, let me come back to the question you asked.
Let us take a short break, Fabrice. We take a short break. I'm glad you've concluded on accountability and relevance. Now, when we come back, I want you to tackle my question on how far have we gone
Yes.
away from the roots, what do we do to get back, but also the prosperity
That's where, yeah,
gospel,
yeah.
that one, that is sending some of us out of church
Mm.
because we're being made to feel less of Christians. We are tackling a conversation that is delicate. You know, people say, do not touch God's anointed. Now, on the real talk today, looks like we're going to touch on God's anointed. May lightning not strike us. Thank you for joining the conversation. We're live on RTV and on YouTube. Please do share the links that we have as many people as possible join in. And if you have a question or a comment, use the hashtag The Real Talk. We will respond. We're at Mythos Boutique in Kiovu on Twitter and on different social media platforms at Hotel Mythos. You visit them and get in touch if you need any of the services that they offer. Welcome back. This is The Real Talk. My name is Jackie, and our guest is Fabrice. Fabrice is a brother of mine, a brother in Christ, who you know his background because we had him here last week, got to know him, and today we're seeking his opinion on the issue of Christianity, churches being closed, the role of the government or the state, the role of Christianity, religion. Where do these two meet, and how do we coexist? You know, he's said a lot of things before we took the break. We're now going to his thoughts on the question that I asked earlier. Fabrice.
Yeah. Um, Talking about coming back to the roots, I would want to first of all say that regardless all the things I've mentioned, I know that church is a beautiful thing. The church, I've been part and I'm part of healthy churches, and I know how it can impact people's lives and the society if it is done correctly. However, there is a number of theological errors that have come a long history. A long, really, it's not today. These things have started a long time ago, um, and these errors have taken us astray. And sometimes we judge Christianity using those lenses of the things that have happened. Number one, although we never want to talk about it, before I go to the prosperity gospel, I don't even know if it's a gospel, but maybe we could call it prosperity heresy.
Not gospel.
Before we get there, most Africans don't connect with Christianity because it came to us through colonialism.
Fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
So
fact.
people who brought Christianity, I believe they were the first ones who needed Christ.
Mm-hmm. And did they have him?
I doubt. I doubt because, it is very easy for a signpost to say this is Nyarutarama, and the signpost will never go to Nyarutarama. I am not
It's stationed in
questioning
one place.
I am not questioning
True.
the message they brought,
Yes.
but I'm questioning who they were and the intention. Because them being Christians and coming to bring Christianity to Africa, they used Christianity to rule over people and to suppress the people. Therefore, today, most of us forget that Christianity came to Africa before it went to Europe.
We thought it came from Europe.
It did not.
Oh, gosh.
The historians tell us that the Apostle Matthew came to Africa, especially to Ethiopia. So the oldest church in Africa, or even before Europe, is the Church of Ethiopia in Africa. So we knew about Christ before the white people in Africa. So the gospel came to Africa before it went to Europe. I wanted just to emphasize that Christianity should not be seen as a European religion. The Europeans used Christianity to rule over Africans. What I just want us to agree on is the fact that Christianity comes from Christ. Christ is not French. Christ is not uh,
He's
British.
not
He is
European.
not European. Christianity spread through Europe, yes, but it also came to Africa and stuff like that. I just want us
But
to
and before
see.
then let me just take that I have not understood.
Mm,
And there was a form of worship that
yes,
existed
before.
before Christianity.
Yes. And how,
Ah,
let me give you an example of the Apostle Paul when he goes to Corinth,
yeah.
how he introduces Christianity. He does not, he found there was a temple, people were, worshiping a number of gods and stuff like that, but they had a temple which was for the unknown God. Hmm? And then Paul starts and says, you know what, I'm coming today to tell you about this unknown God. And but he comes from a humble position. He is not enslaving people, then therefore I'm going to teach you about my God.
Mm-mm.
No, they have a discussion, a very
He's,
intellectual,
he's he's looking for their willingness
their willingness
to learn. Yeah, he
to
will not
believe.
impose it on them.
Mm,
He will move with them slowly.
yes.
Yes.
So therefore, because we lived in that colonial times and our grandfathers lived there and they saw that. So there's this angry face we have towards Christianity before even we know what Christianity is all about. So when I say coming back to
Their
to
business
the
was going to
roots,
collapse
I'm talking about coming back to Jesus'
to
message,
Jesus. Mm.
not to religion. Remember when Martin Luther, comes to a point where he says, you know what, I can't continue with this religion thing. The church had reached a point where they were selling indulgences, they were selling forgiveness. And you will say, that's from a long time ago, Jackie, Fabrice, sorry, it doesn't happen today. But when someone says, this is water I prayed for,
Mm.
uh, with a gift, a free gift, they're saying a free gift of $100, you get the water,
You drink it
you
and you'll be
drink it, and you
fine.
will be fine.
Mm.
What you are doing, you are selling this water. You are selling something which is free, something which Christ already paid for and said it is finished.
Yeah.
So religion cannot like Christ. So coming back to the roots is coming back to Christ, who heals freely, who forgives freely, like he forgave the Samaritan woman, he forgave
Mm.
gave the woman which was caught in adultery, and so on and so forth. Today, we have a teaching called prosperity gospel, which has infiltrated the church. And this teaching says everyone must be rich in the church. And for you to be rich, you have to give to the church. I've heard
The more you give,
the
the
more
more
you
you
give,
get.
the more you get.
Mm.
I remember watching TV one day and I saw the president saying, why don't it was funny because he was asking the question, saying, why do I have to give you more for me to be rich? I'm the one who has the money already. So it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah. That me who has the money will
You are
have to
asking me
give
to
you
be
who's
for
begging.
you, for me to be
Yes.
rich. You see, it
Yes.
doesn't make
It
sense. And
doesn't. It's
just
plain
it's
for
just
everyone to
plain for
see, but we
everyone to
don't
see.
see.
The blessings of God,
Yeah.
you
You
cannot
know,
sell the blessings
now
of
that you
God.
bring that, you quote what the president has said, and lately we've quoted him a lot, and he's saying we should be intelligent, like apply some
Mm,
thought
mm,
to this. We have the spiritual leader, the pastor,
mm.
who is exploiting people. What is the place of the people that accept to be exploited? What do you think is driving us to that place where we are seeking? We've been told, I was somewhere and Well, we were told of people who were told, enter this tunnel because at the end of that tunnel, you will find a potential husband, you'll find a potential wife. We've seen cases where people have been told, fast for 40 days. And this person is fasting for 40 days. You never know, they could lose their life. They could come out of that place with some illness, and they do it. Talk to the ignorant sheep that follow for the sake of following and get to do things just because daddy has said so.
You know, in the Bible, we are told to examine scriptures ourselves, to examine scriptures. And most of our Christians don't read the Bible from themselves. Remember last time when I was in this talk, I told you how I went and read the Bible for myself and then uh, decided to go to Bible school and study theology for myself.
And because you were looking for a deeper
Yeah,
understanding.
because I realized I was also starting to be a victim of this. I remember going to South Africa and for some theological
You said it was
studies.
the wrong theology.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was exposed for 3 weeks to something which was really horrible, where they were telling us we cannot be sick. So some of us started not taking medicine, and we cannot be poor and stuff like that. Let me tell you, Jesus himself, I kept remembering. Jesus said, you know, among you, the rich will always be there, and the poor will always be there. You know, so this whole theology, when it is taught in church and you don't go back home and examine for yourself, you'll be like, it's from daddy, it's from the pastor. How can I dispute what this guy is saying? We have to question. We have to question. Maybe, maybe let me put it this way. You have to ask questions. People asked questions to Jesus every time. Even the disciples, they said, show us the Father. They would ask questions. They'd be like, how is it possible? How are we going to do this? When he was about to multiply the bread, they said, you know, Master, we don't have anything. They would confront Jesus. They would tell him the realities of things. You know, you see Peter having a conversation with Jesus, the lakeside, after the resurrection. You see them having a conversation. You see Peter asking questions, even Jesus asking questions. You see a relational
He encouraged
Jesus.
it.
Yes.
He encouraged it.
And this is a guy
Yeah.
who had denied him, who said, you know what? But Jesus is there having a discussion. Jesus loved personal interactions. He never he never wanted anyone to just see him as God and never ask questions. So when I say people who are in churches, they need to examine the scriptures, it's because the Bible is a mixture of 66 books written on a span of more than 1,000 something years. And if you give the Bible to someone with no understanding of the context in which the Bible is written, this person can literally teach anything. If you want to kill, you can find verses about killing. If you want to fornicate, you can find verses about doing that in the Bible.
So you'll find verses
If
for
you
it
if you
and
want to
verses
hang
against
yourself,
it. Mm.
you can find. There's this story that is always told of a guy who used to read the Bible by just opening and and reading. So one day he opened and he saw, and Judah hung himself. Then he closed. He said, Lord, I need the word. And then he opened, go and do the same. You see, these are two verses in the Bible,
Opened randomly.
opened randomly without any exegesis, without any context. Then people just, there's a way you read the Bible. There's a course when you're doing theology that is called How to Read the Bible. And they show you exactly what you need to do for you to read the Bible. Because you cannot take a story um, um, from the book of Ecclesiastes, and you just read it and you bring it today, and you say you build the whole theology around it without asking yourself, what does this mean in the scheme of things, in the in the New Testament with Jesus Christ, the New Testament? What does it really mean today? Because remember, Solomon had 1,000 wives,
Yes.
right?
Mm.
And many more. So should we all have what,
Mhm.
1,000 wives?
No.
What we need to understand is that this guy, yes, he was a king, but when you are looking at the Bible, we cannot give Solomon as an example because he has not reached yet the redemption in Christ. He still has his own flaws as a normal human being, and God
Mm.
is still trying to refine us. So today, these prosperity teachings that we see, they are not people. They use the Bible,
Mm.
give and it will come back to you, good measure, pressed down and shaken
Second,
together.
yes.
And people will take this and say, everyone give, 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 give. Okay, it's good to give, and I'm not against giving. But you cannot tell me that today I am blessed because I'm giving to you.
You won't buy that.
I am blessed in Christ already, and I'm giving you because I'm blessed. This whole theology of prosperity goes with the faith movement, which says, anything you proclaim will
Yeah.
come to pass.
Yeah.
But let's remember that Christ himself didn't want to go to the cross at some point. He said,
Mm.
Father, if you will,
Yeah.
may this cup,
Take this cup away from
take
me.
this cup away from me.
Yeah.
But he said, not my will, but yours
It's
be done.
God's will.
So when we say everything we say will come to pass,
Yeah.
we are teaching Christians to be gods. Okay? We're telling them you replace God. So when people start being disappointed that a loved one that they prayed for died, that they didn't get the scholarship they wanted, that they didn't board the plane that
Yes,
they
that they
wanted
had
to
been
board,
promised. Mm.
then people are disappointed. You understand? So we cannot sell hope and tell people everything is going to be all right. We need to come to a point where we teach people you will be rich if you work, because people are not working. The
They
Bible
want
says
to
he
be
will
rich, but
bless
they're not
the
working.
works of your hands. He will bless the works of
Of your
your hands.
hands.
So as
We've got
pastors,
to
let's
work.
teach people how to work. Let's
Mm.
teach people the right things.
Mm.
Let's teach people the right doctrine. Christianity is about salvation of the heart.
Yeah.
It's about the matters of morality. It's about the matters of spirituality. Let's not go beyond that and start telling people don't go to hospitals. You will be healed. As a Christian, you cannot be sick.
Yeah.
No, Christians
Or
will be
just
sick.
pray and you will be
Christians will
fine.
die like any other. The only difference is the aftermath. We tell people about heaven. That's what the Bible teaches. For those who believe it, you give your life to Christ because you know that Christ is the hope
Yeah.
of the world.
Yeah.
So that's the message of the gospel. Believe in Christ, trust him, be transformed, and there is heaven. That is
That's
the
powerful.
message of the gospel.
That's powerful.
The message of the gospel is not money. The message of the gospel is not visa.
Mm.
Because again, coming back to relevance, people today who are not in Christ can have those things. They
Yeah.
can build those houses.
Yeah.
They can go to Europe.
We keep
So,
saying we've seen people who do not even go to church at all be very successful,
yes.
wealthy. They
And
can't have it
and
all.
and I don't know how many visas Jesus had. I don't know how many V8s he had. I don't know how many of those cars he had.
How many
His
private jets he
message
had.
was not about private jets.
Yeah.
His message was about heaven. His message was about the kingdom of God. Let's stick to our message and let's not start deviating and going into matters where the state will have to come and say, hey, hey, hey,
Yeah.
what are you doing here?
Fabrice, I'm so glad that you've answered basically all the questions that I had, and yet I still want more of you.
Mm,
I want to hear more from you. I have a question of how do we move forward? And if you don't mind, I would love to have you back here because from this conversation, I believe there are questions that will come. I will request you to come back and respond to those questions.
mm,
Questions could come from Christians, non Christians, church owners, now that some churches are being run as businesses. But I also want you, I want us in the next episode to look at examples from around the world where the government came in a little bit too late. I would love for us to look at that the next time we're here. So your remarks as we build up to the next episode.
mm. My final words would go to my fellow Christians. Um, you might have probably caught this in the middle, didn't hear the introduction or whatever, and caught one or two sentences in the middle and say, this guy is speaking against the church. No, I am for the church and I will always be for the church. The only thing I want is us to ask ourselves the tough questions and build from there and be better. In the Bible, we see in Timothy it says, this is true religion, you know, feed the hungry, take care of the widows and stuff like that. And Jesus says, go to the ends of the earth and preach the message of the gospel, baptizing them in. And we need to come back to the message of the gospel. I am happy every time I see a church. Very recently, I saw a church that went to Nyabugogo and preached to those people. And later, I visited the church and heard the testimonies from the people from Nyabugogo saying how their lives were transformed, how they were about to kill themselves and hang themselves and eat poison. And yet now they have hope and they are coming to church and they are seeing hope. Those are the stories we want to hear. I don't want to come to church and hear the stories of Range Rovers. I don't want to come to church and hear the stories of visas, because those things, the world has them. What the world does not have is the hope that Christ promises. And that's the church, the true church that I stand for, that I believe in, and that I feel like it's even what the state needs to see. Because in Rwanda, we have some amazing churches, some very good churches that are doing amazing things. And
Yes,
no wonder not all of them were closed.
thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. And I do hope that you have learned something, you've picked something. And as Fabrice said, this is a conversation run by two Christians. We are not against the church, but we are definitely against the wrong gospel, the wrong church. And if, as Christians, we can find a way of going back to what Christianity was originally about and cause the impact that you've had, Fabrice, say, then we will be in the right place. We'll be fulfilling our purpose. We will see you next week. May God bless you abundantly and just go out there and be good, serve ultimately. A big thank you to Mythos Boutique Hotel in Kiovu for hosting us. Take care.